Have you ever wondered what it's like when your whole life, everything you've built, everyone you've trusted, turns out to be a lie? Before I tell you my story, subscribe to this channel and write in the comments where you're listening from. I really want to know that I'm not alone in this. My name is Sarah, and I'm 40 years old. 6 months ago, I was living what I thought was the perfect life in Highland Park, Dallas. My husband Mark worked in finance. My two children, 12-year-old Emma and 10-year-old Jake, attended the most prestigious private school in town. And I spent my days organizing charity events and perfecting my serve at the tennis club. But the foundation of our perfect life was not my husband's success or my connections in society. It was my grandmother, Eleanor Whitmore. She belonged to the Dallas aristocracy, an old fortune, an old family, old secrets that I was about to uncover in the most horrific way possible. Grandma Eleanor lived in a mansion on Turtle Creek Boulevard, which was filled with priceless works of art that had belonged to our family for generations. At least, that's what I thought. She was a woman who commanded respect wherever she went, with her silver hair always perfectly styled and the pearls she never took off her neck. She paid for my children's education, our country club membership, and essentially our entire lifestyle. The first crack in my perfect world appeared on a March morning. I was having coffee with my friend Jessica at our usual spot when she leaned over and whispered, "Sarah, honey, have you seen the news?" My blood ran cold when she showed me her phone. The headline read, "Dallas art world rocked by massive art forgery scandal. Renowned collector under investigation." The screen showed a photo of my grandmother, Eleanor Whitmore, accused of organizing one of the largest art forgery operations in Texas history. The FBI raided her home at dawn, seizing dozens of paintings worth millions of dollars. Paintings I grew up with, paintings that shaped my understanding of beauty and culture. I rushed home and, with trembling hands, called her. The phone went to voicemail. Then I called my husband. "Mark, tell me you've seen the news. Tell me it's not true." His silence spoke volumes. "Sarah," he finally said in a barely audible voice, "I need to talk to you when I get home." That evening, Mark sat me down and told me what he had learned from his acquaintances in the city center. Grandma Eleanor wasn't just selling fakes. She had created a whole network of forgers, hiring talented artists to copy famous works and then selling them to unsuspecting collectors across the country. This operation had been going on for over 20 years. "But Sarah," Mark continued, and I saw fear in his eyes, "that's not all. The money she used to support us, pay for the children's education, the down payments on our house, all of it was obtained in this way." I felt like I was drowning. Everything we had, everything we were, was built on fraud. But the worst was yet to come. The next morning, I got a call from Pembroke Academy, where Emma and Jake had been attending preschool. The headmistress, Mrs. Patterson, spoke in that particular tone that people in Dallas use to deliver a social death sentence. "Mrs. Richardson, given the recent events in your family, the board of directors feels that it would be best for Emma and Jake to finish the school year at another school." They were expelling my children, not because of anything they had done, but because their great-grandmother was a criminal. In a matter of days, our world fell apart. The country club recommended that we temporarily suspend our membership. Invitations to children's birthday parties mysteriously stopped coming. Even our neighbors started crossing the street to avoid us. But the cruelest blow came from the children themselves, not mine, but their former friends. One day, Emma came home from school in tears and told me how Madison, her best friend since first grade, had announced to the whole group that Emma's family were criminals and liars. "Mommy," she sobbed, clinging to my shoulder, "Madison said that I probably learned to lie from you, and now no one can trust me." Jake, always a sensitive boy, simply stopped talking. He sat in his room for hours, staring out the window. When I asked him what he was thinking about, he just shrugged and said, "Nothing, Mom, just nothing." The financial reality hit us like a freight train. Without the support of Grandma Eleanor, who was now under house arrest awaiting trial, we couldn't afford the mortgage, let alone private school for the kids. Mark's salary, which had seemed sufficient when supplemented by family money, suddenly seemed unbearably small. We had to sell our house in Highland Park and move to a modest apartment in Plano. For most people, this would not have been traumatic, but for my children, who had known only privilege and high social status, it was like exile. But the hardest part wasn't the financial hardship. The hardest part was watching my children struggle with the truth that I myself had not yet fully grasped, that sometimes the people we love most are capable of terrible things, and sometimes we benefit from those terrible things without even realizing it. One evening, about 3 months after the scandal broke, I was finally able to visit Grandma Eleanor. She seemed smaller, sitting in the living room, surrounded by empty frames that had once held million-dollar forgeries. "Sarah, dear," she said, her voice still tinged with aristocratic tones, "I suppose you hate me now." I wanted to hate her. God knows how much easier that would have been. But looking at this woman who had braided my hair as a child, who had taught me about art and culture and the importance of family heritage, I felt something more complicated than hatred. "Why, Grandma? Why did you do this?" She was silent for a long time, staring at her hands. "After your grandfather died, I discovered that we weren't as wealthy as everyone thought. The art collection was our only real asset, but I couldn't bring myself to sell paintings that had belonged to our family for generations. So I found another way." "You mean you started selling fakes instead of the real paintings?" She nodded. "At first, it was just one painting. I told myself it was temporary until I got back on my feet. But then you got married and needed help around the house. Then the children came along and needed a good education. Before I knew it, 20 years had gone by. That's when I realized that Grandma Eleanor wasn't driven by greed. She was driven by love. Misguided, criminal love, but love nonetheless. She wanted to preserve not only her way of life, but ours as well. She wanted to give us the world, even if it meant stealing it. That conversation changed everything for me. I went home and gathered the children for the most difficult conversation of our lives. "Your great-grandmother made a terrible choice," I told them, "but she made it because she loved us. That doesn't excuse her actions, but it makes her human. And now we have to decide who we want to be." Emma, my sassy little girl, looked at me with eyes that seemed older than her 12 years. "Mom, are we bad people because we used Grandma Eleanor's money?" It was a question I had asked myself every night. "No, sweetheart, we didn't know where the money came from, but now that we do, we have a choice. We can let it define us, or we can use it to become better people." Today, 6 months later, we are still recovering. The kids are in public school, and you know what? They are thriving. Emma joined the debate team and discovered a passion for justice, perhaps inspired by the injustice our family faced. Jake started volunteering at an animal shelter and has completely come out of his shell. Mark and I are closer than ever. Losing everything on the outside forced us to look at what we have on the inside, and we discovered that it's more than enough. As for Grandma Eleanor, she pleaded guilty last month and will likely spend the rest of her life in prison. I visit her every week and have forgiven her, not because what she did was right, but because the anger was poisoning my ability to love my children with all my heart. The psychological lesson I learned from this situation is this: our value is not determined by circumstances, possessions, or even the choices of our family. It is determined by how we respond when everything falls apart. By losing our perfect life, we found our real one, and sometimes that is the greatest gift of all.